All right, looks like we've got a lot to unpack today. You've sent over excerpts from medical websites, some pretty dense scientific journals, and even some personal notes about your allergies.
Wow, that's quite the mix.
It is, but that's what makes this a deep dive. We're going to try to crack the code of allergies together and see if we can't uncover some cool insights along the way. I think we all know the basics, sneezing, itchy eyes, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, the classic symptoms. But it's really fascinating when you start to understand the why behind it all. Like, why does your body do that in the first place?
Exactly. Speaking of why, you included this crazy detailed diagram of the immune system from Johns Hopkins. It's like a roadmap to a microscopic battlefield going on inside of us.
Right. I mean, this isn't just about memorizing all the different parts of the system.
No, definitely not.
It shows us just how complex our immune systems really are and how they work so hard to keep us healthy.
I like to think of it as this incredibly intricate security system.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And like any complex system, sometimes there can be glitches.
Glitches.
Yeah, like mistaking something totally harmless, say a peanut, as a dangerous invader.
Oh, so that's basically what an allergy is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your immune system basically goes into overdrive against something that's not actually a threat. Kind of like that friend who always jumps to conclusions and overreacts to every little thing,
Okay, I know that friend.
right? Except in this case, instead of yelling or something, this overreaction triggers a whole bunch of chemicals that cause, well, all those annoying allergy symptoms.
So our immune system is basically throwing a party we didn't RSVP to. But how does it even know what to target in the first place? Like, what makes an allergy so specific?
Ah, good question. That's where these things called IgE antibodies come in. You know those wanted posters you see in old movies?
Yeah.
Well, each IgE antibody is like a tiny, specialized, wanted poster for one specific allergen.
Wow, that's pretty wild. And your research even highlights a recent study where they found a unique type of IgE antibody just for Booch pollen allergies.
It is pretty cool.
So there could be a whole set of these wanted posters out there, each one designed for a different type of pollen.
Precisely. And that explains why you might be super allergic to birch pollen, but your neighbor doesn't even notice when those trees bloom.
Oh, so that's why I react, but they don't?
Exactly. Our individual set of IgE wanted posters is unique, shaped by both our genetics and our environment.
So the first time I come into contact with birch pollen, my immune system starts making these specialized antibodies. Is that when I start actually having symptoms?
Not necessarily. The first encounter might not cause any noticeable reaction, but it kind of sets the stage. Your immune system is basically making a blueprint for how to respond the next time it encounters birch pollen.
So like a military strategist planning their next big move.
Yeah, a really detailed plan. Then, the second time you encounter birch pollen,
Boom.
pretty much.
Where?
Those IgE antibodies sound the alarm and trigger this chain reaction, releasing a flood of chemicals, things like histamine, that lead to those classic allergy symptoms.
So it's the IgE antibodies that act as the alarm bells.
Exactly. And you mentioned that complex diagram of the immune system.
Right.
Well, your tonsils, for example, they're not just there to give you sore throats.
They have another purpose.
Right. They, along with your lymph nodes and spleen, are key players in this whole allergic cascade. They're home to these cells called mast cells, and those mast cells are basically tiny ticking time bombs packed with histamine and other inflammatory chemicals.
Oh, ticking time bombs.
Maybe a bit dramatic, but it gets the point across. When the IgE antibodies latch onto the allergen, it triggers the mast cells to release all those chemicals, and boom, the allergy symptoms hit you.
And if I'm understanding this right, the more of those IgE antibodies I have for birch pollen, the more mast cells get activated, the worse my symptoms.
You got it. It's all about the scale of the immune response, which is why figuring out your specific triggers and how severe your reactions are, that's so crucial.
So those allergy tests, they're not just about finding out if you're allergic to something, it's about understanding how allergic you are.
You got it. And speaking of severity, let's talk about a much more serious allergic reaction for a second. Anaphylaxis. Your notes mention that you carry an epinephrine autoinjector.
I do. My doctor really stressed how important it is, but I'll be honest, it's still a little scary.
I understand.
What exactly is it that makes anaphylaxis so dangerous?
Well, it's basically your body's defenses in complete overdrive. Remember those mast cells we talked about?
Yeah, the little ticking time bombs.
Right. Well, with anaphylaxis, they're activated on a massive scale, releasing a ton of chemicals all at once. That causes widespread inflammation, which can lead to a really dangerous drop in blood pressure.
So it's not just affecting one organ, it's a full body emergency.
You got it. That's why it's crucial to spot the warning signs early on. Things like difficulty breathing, swelling in the face or throat, a sudden drop in blood pressure. Then you have to act quickly.
And that's where the epinephrine auto-injector comes in.
Exactly. It's your first line of defense. Buys you valuable time until you can get medical help.
Okay, that puts things in perspective. It's not just about avoiding a little sniffling and sneezing. It's about being prepared for a potentially life-threatening situation.
Exactly. And that awareness, that preparedness, can literally be life-saving.
So we've covered how allergies work, from the IgE antibodies to those mast cells and how they all play a part. But I'm wondering, after that initial reaction, does everything just calm down and go back to normal in the immune system?
It would be nice if it were that simple, but it's actually way more complex than that. Your immune system is always learning, always adapting after every exposure to an allergen.
So even when I'm not experiencing symptoms, my immune system is still strategizing in the background.
You got it. And that learning process, well, sometimes it can lead to even stronger reactions down the line.
Oh, wow. So it never really stops working.
Nope. It's a good reminder that your immune system is super dynamic, constantly evolving and responding to everything around it, which is pretty amazing, but also a little bit scary when it comes to allergies.
It really makes you realize that allergies are more than just a seasonal annoyance.
For sure. It's this complex interaction between our bodies and the world around us.
We just finished talking about the science behind allergies, how all those IgE antibodies and mast cells work together. But going through your notes, something else really stood out to me. You've written some really personal reflections about what it's like to live with allergies every single day.
It's true. There's a whole other side to allergies beyond the physical symptoms.
Right. It's the emotional weight, the constant vigilance.
It takes a lot of energy to navigate a world that's full of potential triggers. Always being on guard, thinking 2 steps ahead.
Yeah. You mentioned one specific example that really resonated with me, that dinner at your friend's house. You were super careful, but still had a reaction.
Oh, yeah.
I can't even imagine how frustrating that must have been.
It is. It's really tough. It's like you want to relax and enjoy time with friends, but in the back of your mind, there's always this worry.
Like an invisible barrier between you and actually being present in the moment.
Exactly. And then when a reaction does happen, there's this wave of embarrassment.
Yeah.
Like you're somehow letting everyone down.
And it can be really isolating, especially if people around you don't quite get how serious allergies can be.
You're right. It's not just about a little discomfort. For some, it could be life or death.
Yeah, and that fear, that feeling of being vulnerable, it can affect so many parts of life. Everything from travel to relationships to even just trying new foods.
It's true.
You even mentioned feeling anxious about traveling, especially to places where you don't know the language or the customs around food.
It's a valid concern. I mean, traveling can be great, but it adds a whole extra layer of planning when you have allergies.
Right. Researching restaurants, packing extra meds, maybe even learning a few key phrases in the local language just in case.
Oh, yeah. Got to be prepared. But, what's really inspiring is that despite all the challenges, there's this incredible resilience that shines through in your writing.
It does.
You talk about learning to advocate for yourself, developing coping mechanisms. You even find humor in some of the trickier situations.
You've basically figured out how to take back some control in a world that can feel really unpredictable.
You have to. And it brings up another point you made, finding your people, connecting with others who truly understand.
Oh, that sense of community is so powerful.
It really is. Sharing tips, swapping stories, realizing you're not alone.
And I bet those connections can be really empowering too, learning from others who've faced similar challenges.
Definitely. It's like a support system that goes beyond the doctor's office.
Okay, so acknowledging the emotional weight, building resilience, and finding your community. It sounds like you've discovered some solid strategies for dealing with the ups and downs of allergies.
Well, it's a work in progress. But what's important is that it's not just about coping. It's about thriving. It's about figuring out how to live a full life, even with allergies.
Right, they're part of your life, but they don't have to define your life.
Exactly. Which leads to a bigger question you brought up. Why does it seem like allergies are becoming more common everywhere? Like, is it just us or is something really changing?
Yeah, you'd think with all the advancements in medicine and, how much we focus on hygiene these days, we'd see fewer allergies.
You would think so.
Yeah.
But the research shows the opposite. The number of people with allergies has been steadily increasing, and scientists are trying to figure out why.
So it's like a big allergy mystery they're trying to solve.
Pretty much. And one of the most interesting theories, maybe even a little counterintuitive, is something called the hygiene hypothesis.
The hygiene
Yeah,
hypothesis.
it basically suggests that maybe our obsession with cleanliness is actually making us more prone to allergies.
Wait, so being too clean could be a bad thing. Now I'm really
I know it
curious.
sounds crazy, right? But the idea is that our immune systems actually need exposure to a whole bunch of different microbes, especially when we're kids.
Like it's training for the immune system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's teaching it to tell the difference between what's a real threat and what's harmless.
So if we're always sanitizing everything, are we kind of like depriving our immune systems of that essential training?
That's the theory. By trying to eliminate all germs, we might be messing with our immune system's balance, making it more likely to overreact to harmless stuff like pollen.
Interesting.
And there's some evidence to support this. For instance, research shows that kids who grow up on farms, exposed to more microbes, have lower rates of allergies compared to city kids.
So playing in the dirt is actually good for you.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
Of course, the hygiene hypothesis is just one piece of the puzzle. Our genes, our diet, even exposure to certain pollutants can play a role.
You mentioned diet. What's the
Yeah.
connection there?
There's a ton of research going on right now looking at the link between what's known as the Western diet and the increase in allergies.
The Western diet, you mean like processed foods and stuff.
Yeah, foods that are high in sugar, unhealthy fats.
So what we eat could actually influence whether we develop allergies.
It's definitely a possibility. One theory is that this kind of diet can disrupt the balance of bacteria in our gut. And the gut, believe it or not, plays a huge role in how our immune system functions.
Wait, our gut bacteria affect our immune system. That's a connection I never would have made.
Right. It's pretty wild. We have trillions of bacteria living in our gut, what's called the gut microbiome,
Yeah.
and they actually communicate with our immune system.
So an unhealthy diet could lead to an unhealthy gut, which could then make us more susceptible to allergies.
That's the hypothesis.
Mm.
It's complicated, and research is still ongoing. But more and more evidence shows this strong link between gut health and immunity.
Makes you think twice about those probiotics everyone's always talking about.
Yeah. The gut microbiome is a hot topic right now, and for good reason. It seems to be involved in everything from how we digest food to our mental health, and yes, even allergies.
Okay, so we've got the hygiene hypothesis and the diet connection. What about other things in the environment? Are scientists looking at those too?
Oh yeah, there's a big one we can't ignore. Climate change. As global temperatures keep rising, we're seeing changes in plant life, pollen production, even air quality, all of which affect allergies.
So climate change is actually changing the allergens around us.
Exactly. Some studies show that pollen seasons are getting longer and more intense in parts of the world because of warmer temperatures.
Oh, wow. More pollen, more allergies.
Right. And it's not just the pollen itself.
I think I read something about air pollution making allergy symptoms worse too, right?
You're exactly right. Air pollutants can irritate our airways, which can make us more sensitive to allergens.
More pollen and more sensitive airways. That's a tough combo for anyone with allergies.
Definitely. It really shows how interconnected everything is.
Mm.
Our health, our environment, our lifestyle choices. It's not just about individual actions anymore. It's about these bigger issues.
It is a lot to think about, but I'm glad we're talking about the bigger picture of this whole allergy thing.
Me too. And as we keep exploring this complex world of allergies, another thing you mentioned in your notes that I think is super important to consider, the financial side of things.
Oh, you're right. Allergies aren't just physically and emotionally draining. They hit our wallets too.
You said it. Think about the cost of doctor's appointments, allergy tests, medications, special diets, even things like hypoallergenic bedding or air purifiers. It all adds up.
That's just the direct cost, though. What about the indirect costs, like missing work or school because of allergies?
Huge factor that often gets overlooked. Allergies can impact your productivity, your social life, even the kind of career you choose.
It's a good reminder that healthcare isn't just about treating symptoms. It's about the full impact a condition has on someone's life.
Well said. And it highlights the need for healthcare and support systems that are both affordable and accessible, especially as allergy rates keep rising.
We've covered so much ground already. We've explored the emotional side of living with allergies, dug into the potential reasons why they're becoming more common, and even talked about the financial burden.
We have. And as we head into the final part of our deep dive, I think it's time to turn our attention to the future. What's next for allergy treatments?
I like where you're going with this. What does the future hold? And are there any breakthroughs that could offer some real hope for people dealing with allergies? It's been a wild ride. We've gone deep into the world of allergies, talked about those IgE antibodies and mast cells, even explored the emotional and financial toll.
It's a lot to process.
It is. But there's also hope. You've shared some articles about research that's happening right now, and honestly, some of it sounds pretty amazing.
Huh.
What are you most excited about when it comes to the future of allergy treatment?
Well, it's easy to get stuck on the problems.
Yeah.
But what really gives me hope is that scientists aren't just looking for ways to manage allergy symptoms.
Right.
They're actually trying to change how our immune system reacts to allergens.
Wow, that's a big goal.
It is. And one area that's looking really promising is immunotherapy, sometimes called allergy shots.
Oh, I've heard of
It's
those.
basically like retraining your immune system to be okay with specific allergens.
So like exposure therapy for your immune system.
Exactly. You get injections with tiny bits of the allergen over time, and the dose slowly increases. The idea is to kind of desensitize your system.
So it no longer sees that thing as a threat.
Right. And it
Yeah.
does take time, usually years of those injections.
Mm.
But for a lot of people, it can really reduce their symptoms.
Wow. And sometimes even lead to long-term remission.
Yeah. It's not a quick fix, but the payoff can be huge.
Definitely worth it for some relief.
And the research keeps going. There are even newer ways to do immunotherapy, like these tablets you dissolve under your tongue.
Oh, so no needles. I like the sound of that. But what about food allergies? Those can be way more serious, right? Any breakthroughs on that front?
Food allergies are a whole other challenge. Safety is the top priority.
Yeah.
But researchers are working on it. One thing that seems to be working is oral immunotherapy. It's kind of like the shots, but with tiny amounts of the food allergen.
So instead of a shot, you're actually eating a little bit of the food.
Yeah. Still in the early stages, but showing good results for things like peanut allergies. And that's a big deal.
It is.
Imagine the difference that would make for families who live with that fear all the time.
Wow, that would be life-changing for so many. Any other approaches for food allergies in the works?
Another exciting development is the use of biologics.
Biologics.
They're medications that zero in on very specific parts of the immune system, the ones that trigger that whole allergic cascade.
So instead of suppressing the entire immune system, which can have side effects.
Right. Biologics target just the problem areas, like using a laser instead of a sledgehammer.
Very precise.
Exactly. We already have some for things like asthma and eczema, but they're researching more for food allergies and other types. It's really cutting-edge stuff.
All this sounds so futuristic. I love it. But what about preventing allergies in the first place? Is there any way to stop them before they even start?
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Right. And there's some really cool research looking at what's called early allergen introduction.
Oh, yeah, like giving babies peanut butter early to prevent peanut allergies.
That's it. The idea is that if you expose the immune system to allergens early on, while it's still learning, it might actually build up tolerance, like teaching it what's safe.
It's the total opposite of what we used to think.
It is. It'll take more research to figure out the best and safest way to do it, but it's definitely promising.
It is exciting. We've talked about all the challenges of allergies, how they affect our lives, and even how the world around us is changing things. But hearing about all this new research, the potential for new treatments and ways to prevent allergies, it really gives me hope.
I agree. And in the meantime, while we're waiting for these breakthroughs, there are ways to manage allergies and still live a great life.
Absolutely. Finding the right treatments, learning to speak up for your needs, finding support from others, it all makes a difference. And hey, maybe one day allergies will be a thing of the past.
I hope so.
Until then, we'll keep learning, keep adapting, and keep hoping. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.